Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Dave?
Lionel.
Dave.
Lionel.
Are you in Chattanooga now?
I am not in Chattanooga.
Because that's where, it's now that it's like, it's probably towards the end of July that we're broadcasting this. Let me look on the big board and see what it says. Today is July 29th.
All right.
So by now if you're with the Kalmbach gang, you're all packed up and down there in Chattanooga.
I think they're staying in Wisconsin for now, at least from what I hear, but I don't think that'll last all that long.
Oh yeah.
My guess, it's they can do a lot of remote work now, like White River does. I think Firecrown has a larger digital presence, and so I think as time goes on, there'll certainly be options for these guys. But it sounds to me like they're moving into a new office space over the course of this past month of the month of July. And pretty much everybody's staying on board, and they're going to see how things go for a while and then go from there, which is sort of an interesting and refreshing approach, I think.
Yeah, I can't tell. I tried to get the guy on to interview him, but that turned out to be a mishmash on my end. So, there was like, I don't know, the guy that I was talking to kept saying, well, just send him a calendar notification. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It sounded like a Gmail calendar thing.
Well, I'm not that. He wasn't explaining it to me, and I had no idea what he was talking about.
You should have the mailboy send one. I bet you the mailboy is well equipped with Google Calendar or some such.
Yeah. It amazes
the Wiz. Years ago, the Wiz got me into the Google Calendar thing, and I have to admit, it has made a positive difference in my world.
That's cool.
It just makes sure that I don't double book myself most of the time, or that when I do, it's my fault, which is better than when I forget.
Well, the problem is not everybody knows how. The problem is people think that because they know how to do something on the computer, you should know how to do something on the computer.
Well, that's true.
And there's so much to learn on the computer. It'd been like me saying to the guy, well, just do a podcast.
Yeah. I think the calendar stuff isn't too bad to cobble together, but it also seems like they've got a much larger administrative staff to handle things like that, where, as you and I have discussed, the AML and the OC administrative staff is considerably smaller than that of modern publishing companies.
Have you heard any more about your book? What's it called?
I have. The timing of today is perfect. My book, which is the design and operation of yards, model railroad yards, which will be a Firecrown book under the Model Railroader brand, is officially at the printers. It's being set up for test prints, and it will be warehoused and available on November 1st. We are on schedule for a November 1st delivery.
Wow. That's cool.
Which is super exciting. I'm thrilled. Yes.
And it's called?
Yards. Well, I think there's been some back and forth about that. I wanted it to say railroad on the title because I think that's going to be important for Google searches and stuff. And I don't know if they accepted that or not because it's not on their website yet, at least not that I've seen. But basically, it's a redo of the idea of the yard book that Andy Sparandio wrote years ago in 1989, 1990. Right. And my understanding is this is going to be called Design and Operation of Yards.
Okay. That's not so bad, is it?
No, it's great. I just personally, and again, they're the experts. I'll defer to the experts. But to me, is it a backyard? Is it a shipyard? Is it a storage yard?
That's right. For on the internet.
Correct.
See, and we just had a discussion about how everybody should know what to do concerning the internet.
Well, not everybody should know what to do, but if there's a good idea, it's worth hearing out. It's worth giving it a shot.
Sure. So, well, why don't you just send them a calendar thing and do it that way?
I'll have to try that next.
Like 3 times the guy sends me, just send him a calendar notification. And I'm very politely trying to say, I got no idea. And finally in my last email, I said, I'm an old man. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I think it's interesting because I don't know how you would link the Werebee. Well, I guess you just put the link in the email. That's probably or in the calendar invite.
No, you want me to send them I don't know. Well, I would have sent them the link later in another email.
You guys have a Gmail address. You could do it from whatever Gmail calendar is with that Gmail address. I'll bet you that wouldn't be that hard to do.
Yeah, if I knew how to work the calendar thing.
Well,
if I wanted to take the time to learn it, on top of all
but you got people that can help you. That's all.
Who do I have to help me?
Bruce.
I don't. Well,
Bruce
I don't
would
know.
be happy to send a calendar invite for you. I'm sure.
I don't even know if he knows how to do it.
I think I can figure it out.
Yeah,
I'll try.
Well, it's too late now. It's too late now. The day is come and gone, and blah blah blah.
I think they'll be around for a while. I think it'd still be worth your time at some point. But
well, no, it was supposed to be on June the 28th, and then I didn't know how to send the calendar thing, and then a week later the guy canceled it, and that was the last we ever heard of him.
Wow. Okay. You should send him a calendar invite and see what happens.
And to be honest with you, I'm not that excited about tracking him down.
Yeah, fair enough. There's lots of people to talk to.
There's lots and lots of people to talk to, so it's like, and there's other podcasts they can go on and be listened to on other podcasts and yada yada yada. So
yeah, well, I believe it will all end as it should.
Well, I think the biggest problem that they're going to have going forward is I doubt that they realize what they've gotten themselves into.
Be interesting. I was thinking about that. It's a pretty passionate and intense community that we're in. Yeah. And for a hobby the size of ours, I think the passion and the purchasing power of this hobby is bigger than equivalent hobbies. It's far more accessible to be a model railroader than it is to fly scale models of F-14s or build an aircraft carrier that actually floats and goes around, and you can have an operating session on a lake with other people that have aircraft carriers or destroyers or whatever. Like, as far as the hobby goes, the fact that our models move is distinctive, but it's especially distinctive because you can get them pretty easily. A couple $100 and you're up and running in this hobby. And you can go down to the grade crossing or the station if you live where there's a passenger train. Or you can go on YouTube and Facebook, and boom, all of this stuff is right in front of you. And there's some great military aviation sites and weathering sites. There's fantastic aviation sites or radio hobby Facebook groups and what have you. But model railroading allows you to get your hands dirty as a novice really easily and quickly be able to learn some of the things that you can use for the rest of your time in the hobby. So I think there's a real tangibility to it. So between that and the purchasing power, I think it's a different hobby.
Yeah, it's like I just don't know if they have any idea. It's kind of like I don't think I'd want the responsibility of buying model railroader.
And that's sort of the funny thing here, right? Is that either way, it's theirs now, right? They're going to have to find a way to rock and roll with that. So it's going to be very curious to see. If he knew what he was getting into, then he's got a very definite idea of how he wants this to go. And those are big shoes to fill. If he didn't know what he was getting into, he's going to learn quickly that there's a very passionate, committed group that's here to be part of it, or to at least provide a sounding board for it. I mean, I think it's a wise move to keep things pretty similar for the first couple months here, the first year, sort of feel it out and see how it goes. But like we've seen with RMC, my opinion is that you put better paper, better pictures, you put a better product out there, and advertisers are going to take notice, and you're going to be able to use that brand for more than just the occasional magazine every month. Right. I mean, you look at, the number of followers of these guys on Facebook, Model Railroader and RMC, is huge. And if there's some positive press for the first time in a while about MR, and as far as they're getting better, it's a longer magazine, they've got new ideas or what have you, you can see where that pretty quickly could get to be something exciting.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I just don't think
So
I mean, it's really,
I don't know if I want to do it either. It's a steep order.
yeah,
It's a
like, I
steep
mean,
order.
if I had the opportunity to interview the guy, I would have said, do you have any idea what you're getting yourself into here? Because this is like kind of like the wailing,
Maybe,
the wailing wall of model railroading. And yet,
maybe that's why you didn't return your your emails, because you didn't want that question.
Oh no, they all
I don't know.
they returned the emails. It was just when they said send a calendar such and such. I don't know what it was exactly, but it's a calendar link or some. I don't know. And I'm like,
I'm happy to be the assistant disgruntled mailboy or whatever title that would be for the next week, and get you a calendar invite out to these guys if you're interested. But I do think.
Well, how do you send out a calendar invite
I think it would just be basically you would take the link to the green room, right? And you'd stick it in a Gmail invite as part of the message and say, be here at this time.
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite. I don't think I'm quite forward enough to say, well, this is the time. I'm just happy to have. I'm just happy to have.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, I mean, okay, and that's right. When we were talking about this, you did say you'd offered, what time would be good. I can, and even that was just send a calendar invite. It's like, well, that doesn't tell me what time would be good.
Yeah. Well, no, we decided on a time and a day, and he kept telling me to send to Craig Fuller, the guy that owns it, some calendar notification. So email or send him some calendar notification. That sounded very Apple-ish to me. And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, could be. Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. And he's like, and I would send it back. I said, I don't know how to do that. And he says, well, you just send a calendar, something, such and such. And I'm like, finally, that's when I went with, I'm an old man. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I thought it was very much like I could have said to him, well, just start a podcast and tell it to him on a podcast. It's like,
you got to delegate to the mailboy. You got an expert mailboy, and the mailboy could make good on this.
Yeah, well, I think I've pretty much given up on them anyways. I'm here. If they want to be on the podcast, I left the invitation. If somebody wants to help me organize it, great. If the guy never comes on here, great. I've already got tons and tons of great guests. So either way, his loss, not mine.
No, I think, I mean, you're the biggest and the most notable podcast in the hobby. They're the biggest brand in the hobby. That's a good thing for both of you guys. Not just you and not just him.
Yeah, and I wonder how.
I definitely think he's done some homework on this, because I think he's a savvy businessman, at least from the limited contact I've had with what he's done and his brands and stuff. I think he's put a lot of money where his mouth is, and it's nice to see someone who's willing to say, look, I started digital, but I fell in love with print. I love the fact that you can take a print magazine and have it out for people to see. And that's an interesting point. Like, you come to the OC and there's train magazines all over the house. They're on the coffee table. They're, where the mail is. They're, of course, around the layout room. They're in the restroom. They're everywhere. And you can just sort of pick them up and peruse as you go.
I bought I was at our buddy Lauren James's store, Otter Valley Railroad, which is a great store. It is an old time model railroad store. It is literally like an old time model railroad store, one you'd walk into in the mid 80s, just packed to the rafters with model railroad stuff. There's nothing else in there other than model railroad stuff. You walk up and down the aisles and it feels like you can't possibly leave without buying something. It's just a fantastic store. I highly recommend everybody make the trek to Tilsonburg. My back still aches when I hear that word, but I highly that's the song.
I love it.
That's the song from Stompin' Tom Connors. Tilsonburg, my back still aches when I hear that word, because it was tobacco country.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
That's interesting. Okay.
Huge. It was a huge area, and it was all tobacco farms down there.
He says you want to work in the tobacco fields of Tilsonburg. Tilsonburg. My back still aches when I hear that word. Well, he said, I'll only give you $7 a day, but if you're any good, you get a raise in pay. Your bed's already on the bunkhouse floor. If it gets a little chilly, you can close the door in Tilsonburg. Tilsonburg. My back still aches when I hear that word.
Just on the north shore of Lake Erie. And for some reason
I guess
or
it's
other,
temperate enough, right?
yeah, for some reason or other, it was a perfect climate for tobacco farms.
Wow, I learned something today. I did not realize that there was significant tobacco farming in Canada. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know if they're still doing it or not. Maybe they are. I understand tobacco is on the downswing. Don't invest all your life savings in tobacco. But yeah. So, anyways, I didn't buy a copy. I took a copy. I said to Lauren, I said, can I have this? And he said, sure. And, which was very nice of him. And, because I'd already just spent $700 on two, Rapido RS18Us.
Yeah. Oh man, those things are so cool.
Could you have them on your layout?
I've got one on my layout. And between that and the Scale Trains GP30 and the Rapido Trains B36-7s from a generation ago, I should say, a couple of years ago now. And with the forthcoming Rapido GP38, which is super exciting for again, 40 years of modelers. I mean, anybody from 1968 or 66 all the way through today can use a GP38 car body. And it's just incredible. It's incredible. All the stuff's getting better and better and better.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anyways, I had an RMC, the most recent issue. Actually, it was the issue with the fellow that had, if DT and I was alive today. So I think it was like maybe the May issue or the June issue.
That was a cool issue. I thought that was a neat concept.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, like RMC now is so head and shoulders above Model Railroader. Like, it's kind of fascinating that the guys bought this thing when in reality, sure, it still has a higher subscription and a higher circulation rate than RMC, which it always did have because it had the name. But I mean, the two magazines side by side don't even compare.
Well, that's why it's a ripe opportunity for purchase. I mean, think about the opportunity when you've got the strongest brand in a hobby and you can make it better.
Yeah.
The sky's the limit if this is done right.
Yeah, if it's done right. That's just like if I was asking.
The sky's the limit, and it'll be interesting. I think one of the things that's neat about the way Fuller seems to be approaching the different brands that he owns is that he doesn't insist on doing it all himself. He has experts at each of these magazines that is an expert in what they're doing, and it comes with the financial backing of this family that he's from what I can understand. And it gives these guys an opportunity to make it work. Can you pull your own weight? Can you grow it?
Yeah.
So I've been saying this since I first heard about this. I don't think there's been a better opportunity for Model Railroader since like 2002 or 2003. Yeah. This is a really exciting change of fortunes, I think, for that brand. It's really going to be interesting to see how it goes.
So technically, I was right on our bet. I was. Yeah, I was. Because what I basically was saying was Kalmbach was not going to survive, and
you said Model Railroader.
I did say Model Railroader, but technically,
so you weren't technically right. You may think you were right, but you were not right.
I think what I was thinking in the back, and I know in our conversations,
I love you, but no way.
Many times in our conversations, I said the Kalmbach family's not interested anymore.
Yeah, and now that much I think was clear.
Yeah. Yep. And because there's no profit in it anymore, they're going to get rid of it. That I know I said to you.
Yep, absolutely. We were both right about that because I agree with that. It was very clear to me that Kalmbach was not going to be interested in this. Wasn't interested in this. Yeah, and it's curious. Someday it'd be interesting to hear the backstories from the grand poobahs that were in charge of the whole thing because. From what you and I have both heard, there had been offers to Kalmbach for the Model Railroader brand before. And I don't know if that, what the details were. Did that include trains? Did Kalmbach want to sell it all as one package? Was there somebody that was still saying, no, I want to make this work, and they finally got overruled? We'll probably never know. It was a private transaction. But one way or the other, I think this is a super exciting thing for the whole hobby. I think it's a seismic change for the whole hobby too. It's a big deal.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the site right now, and it hasn't changed at all from what it was.
No, he basically said it was going to take 6 months to a year to see any changes at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I just uploaded an article to Eric over at MR, and because they like to have an article or two in the hopper when there's a book coming out, so they could use it to advertise the book. So since Yards is going to be coming out in November, I'm hoping that means we'll see an article in the next couple months for the OC as well. But it's still the Kalmbach upload site for the FTP. It's still the old website. They do all have Firecrown email addresses now, at least the people that I'm communicating with. And I know that, again, that this is the month they're moving, and it sounds like it's interesting talking to Jeff Wilson, who's the editor for Yards. He's been tasked with going through some of the library stuff, and he's sending me, he's like, man, I found all this stuff from like 1958. It's like, unpublished stuff from Lynn Westcott, and it just neat stuff to hear about. Again, just as a kid growing up as a fan of the magazines.
Yeah.
It's super cool that some of this stuff is still out in front of the whole community, and there's more to go. So it sounds like some of the stuff's getting donated to museums, some blueprints and stuff they had in their collection that are no longer relevant to what they're trying to do these days. But the other stuff's being archived, scanned, and will be part of some future issues. It does sound like there's some plans for more online presence, which I think is really exciting for the whole trains.com portfolio. Because I thought that the web stuff was kind of cantankerous, at least in my opinion, getting used to it. So I'd be curious to see where that all heads to. But it's a time of opportunity in the hobby, and that's an exciting thing.
Yeah, well, it's always been a time of opportunity in the hobby. I don't think that's ever really changed.
That's a good point, actually. Yes, I agree.
I can remember, I think you've said to me this is the golden age of model railroading, and I can remember talking to Henry Freeman 25 years ago. It would have been in the 90s, and him and I agreed that it was the golden age of model railroading. And, it's always the golden age of model railroading because things just get better and better. And I mean, that was back in the Atlas yellow box days, where you were shaving the handrails off of GP7s and stuff like that. And we thought it was the golden age of model railroading because the equipment ran so well. Once Cato got on the scene and the equipment started running so well, and Rocco, and the equipment started running so well, that was a huge change in the hobby.
What a pleasure the first time I ran an Atlas yellow box unit compared to all the other stuff I'd run before that. And even the Athearn blue boxes, like Kalmbach had that great book about how to tune up an Athearn diesel. And it was just a collection of the articles they'd had over the years on how to open it up, how to open up the whole armature, leave the magnets in, but take the brushes out with the springs. Remember that? Make the springs a little bit less tense and use a really fine sandpaper to sand down the armature and the commutator so that it would pick up more easily with less current draw, and how to lube the gearboxes. That was fun stuff. I learned a lot about mechanical stuff from the hobby because I didn't have any other real guidance on that when I was young. So those books helped a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I learned a ton of stuff just by doing the hobby. I mean, I became a way better carpenter. I became way better at doing basic wiring. I became way better at a whole lot of things.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. And you're the kind of guy that's always been an up by the bootstraps, teach yourself how to do things anyway. And the hobby is just perfect for guys like you and for me. And if you've got passion for it, man, it's a bottomless fountain of just good energy. Even when you're ticked off, even when you're frustrated,
That's right.
And it's a big enough hobby to just take a lot of that in stride. I mean, look at Rapido. Oh, we got to do the ad.
That's right. We do. Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
Nice catch. 24 minutes in. See, I wasn't on the ball tonight. Nice catch. You got that because,
hey, look.
Because of course, 90% of Uncle Dave's Fireside Chats are now on the free channel, available for the world to hear. Hey, maybe your buddy Craig Fuller will listen to it and decide he needs to be. Yeah.
I hope so. Craig, if you're listening, you are welcome. And it's not just welcome. Boy, we'd be thrilled. I would be thrilled to be part of that podcast. But it's look at Rapido. Rapido's 20 years old.
Yeah.
And this is our 20th Fireside chat.
Yeah.
How about that?
And
I still can't believe there's been 20 of these, but I looked at my little calendar and you're right. You were spot on.
Well, yeah, I kind of keep track of that.
Well, that's good.
That I at least, because when I file them away after they're all finished and put away and in the can, I put right on the can. I put Fireside chat number such and such.
Yeah, it's this. Things are changing so quickly in so many different ways. But one thing that I find that's changing in a positive direction is that the passion for this hobby is getting more and more outlets and is becoming more and more shareable. And I just think that's super exciting.
Yeah,
super exciting. I put up a picture on my the Onondaga Cutoff Facebook page of some engines that I've been weathering lately, and this fella Cam Green chimes in, and he's part of the operating group down around Northern Virginia that I've been to down there a couple times. They've been up here a couple times to operate layouts and share sessions and stuff. And Cam has this beautiful Main Central layout set in the 1970s, which is like up my alley. I love that stuff. Harvest Gold, U25Bs and GP9s, Boston and Maine Bluebirds, a couple older weathered stuff, but all the great box cars of that era.
Right.
The Bangor and Aroostook, the Green Mountain Route with the smooth side Main Centrals, but also the brand new rib side yellow guys with the big green Pine Tree Herald. You remember those?
Yeah, yeah.
The Berlin Mills cars, all the stuff that we saw in New Jersey in the paper trains back and forth between New England and like the Mid-Atlantic. Cam, his whole railroad is set up to that's the whole point. It's the terminal for all that stuff.
And what's it called again? What's the railroad called again?
I believe he's calling it the Main Central. I'll peruse it and let you know. That it was he commented on one of my recent Facebook posts about the run through locomotives that I've been doing. And he made the point, hey, I like to do some Western stuff too on my railroad. And it's like we are two people that never ever would have met if it wasn't for model railroading, if it wasn't for operations. And now we're trading stories publicly online for anybody to read at our respective railroad Facebook pages about run through power and how much I think he said he has Rock Island U25Bs, and it surprises everybody that's not familiar with this railroad. And it's like, oh, that's great. It's exactly the sort of the point, So it's that kind of thing that has me so excited about next steps. Yeah, here it is. It's Cameron Green is his name on Facebook. Okay. I have Rock Island U25Bs on my Main Central that always surprise those not familiar with my line. And it's just fantastic. I'm not sure if he's got a Facebook page for his railroad or not, but I will find out.
Yeah. He's got some pictures on his Facebook page of some of this stuff.
Yeah. He's it's one of these layouts. We were down there for a weekend of operations at one point. I don't remember which one it was. It was a while back. But two layouts backed out at the last minute for one reason or another. And so the organizers put this one on at the last minute. And so I thought to myself, wow, I wish we had spare layouts, but hopefully it's pretty good. Hopefully it's, it's all right. Well, we show up to this thing and it's 3/4 scenic. It runs well. It's a unique prototype. It's exciting. There's some of the stuff's weathered. There's a lot of weathering yet to do, but it was a functional railroad with an operating plan, and it ran well. And we had a ball, an absolute ball. It was great.
And where's this, in the Washington area, you say?
Yeah, I think it was east of Alexandria, someplace in northern Virginia.
Okay. I think there's a million great layouts.
Yeah, Lionel, I don't think there's any doubt about it.
I feel like I'm only barely scratching the surface with the people.
I think so. And that's why it would be great for the most recognizable podcast in the hobby to be working with the most recognizable brand in the hobby at some point, because there's an opportunity to touch so many people that love what we're doing with this thing. It's just an exciting time, and I'm really interested to see. I have to admit, I was a little when the whole Fire Crown thing broke, and my manuscript had been submitted, and I could tell they were under a lot of stress. Emails weren't as regular as they had been. How do you wrap your head around a complete merger takeover with all this creative work out there? I was thinking to myself, I mean, I don't know how they're going to do this. It might be years now before this gets out, because the contract that I had, which spelled it out did not spell out a corporate takeover. So I mean, I think legally the contract still would have stood, just with a new owner. You would change the name to the new, and it's a signed thing.
Sure, yeah.
Legally, that would carry over. But let's just say I was very relieved when I heard that the schedule was still on pace. It's full steam ahead. They're still going to do the advertisements in the magazine, which are always kind of fun to see. And November 1st, design and operation of yards will be available online and at retailers, which is super exciting to me. Right in time for the holiday season. It's exciting.
I think you should really kind of be a little bit more forceful, saying design and operation of railroad yards. You're right. The word railroad should be in the title. In today's world,
I think so.
In today's world, it has to be.
I think so. So I made my point, and we'll see what happens.
You're going to make it again?
It is what it is now. It's set in stone.
Okay.
And therefore, I'm not going to rock the boat about that.
Well, no, none of it's set in stone.
It's going to be good enough.
Sure.
But I do think and this is one of those things going forward. When something came from Kalmbach, everybody knew it was about railroad.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
So the next regime here is not just railroads. It's planes, it's ships, right? He's got trucking magazines. There's a lot of people say down by the yard when they're talking about where you maintain your truck fleet.
Oh, sure.
So there's definitely an opportunity here, I think, to sort of see a different picture. And I'm excited to be part of it.
Well, yeah, like you might be showing up at just the right time. I know we've had many discussions about model railroader, and it's like, I've said to you for years, it's a dying thing. And I was right. Like, I guess what I saw was that Kalmbach was never going to survive because they just didn't care. And they were letting the thing dwindle. They were letting, the magazine now is just an anemic relic of its old self. And, it was obvious that the Kalmbach people who owned Kalmbach didn't care anymore. And
I think what it was is a starved version of its old self. It's not anemic. It didn't choose not to eat.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't.
This was forced upon it. This was a starving organization. And I think that's why I'm excited that there's going to be some food at the table for the first time in 15 years or whatever. And we'll see.
Yeah, there's no two ways about it.
Right? I mean, that's what Otto has done such an incredible job of with RMC. Yeah. And I mean, the whole White River team should be commended for the quality of what they're putting out these days. It's world class. So
it really is. Model railroad.
It's a cutting edge.
RMC and what Otto's done is fantastic.
Yeah. I still appreciate the covers on MR. I still think that the cover quality, they kept that where it needed to be. And I love the columnists in MR as well. I love all the columnists right now. I think Jason Sharon's column is fascinating on RMC. I certainly enjoy Tony Koester's column and Jerry Dietzig's column over in MR. I think all three of those guys are leaders in the hobby, and there's a lot to learn, and there it is every month. It's nice to be able to hold that in your hand and read through things. But if we see MR finally become, more of a table piece where it's heavy glossy pictures and heavy glossy pages and, new ideas and drawing from this huge library they've got of all this great stuff. There's just a lot of good opportunity. A lot of good opportunity there.
I don't see anywhere right now. Right now, I don't see anywhere on the Fire Crown media site anywhere where they talk about their books. I don't see a place where the books are for sale.
Well, I don't think they have any books yet.
Well, don't they have all the books that Kalmbach had?
They will. But I know that there was no Fire Crown book until they bought Kalmbach books.
I know, but I mean, like when you used to go to the oldtrains.com, somewhere you could find books.
Yep, and I believe you still can on trains.com.
I'm looking.
It's
I'm
not
looking.
It's not over at Fire Crown yet.
Yeah, but I'm looking on trains.com and I'm trying to see. Maybe it's how to. Maybe it's under how to.
Oh, I guess that's what I mean. I don't like the way that site's set up.
Well, no, me neither. It's not like there's no easy way to find the books right now, and it's covered with ads. I hope they get rid of that stuff. Well, all the other stuff on Fire Crown Media isn't covered with ads. This is the old trains.com site. So
yeah, well, exactly. That's exactly. I think that's all it is.
Yeah, that's all it is right now. Is the old trains.com.
Yeah, but
site.
it's the Kalmbach Hobby Store still has the book, the whole book section.
Okay, well,
and there's a link on it someplace, but you're right that's hard to find.
Yeah, because I want to see if we can get everybody wants their own personal version of what's it called?
Design and operation of yards.
Oh yeah, design and operation of yards. I can't even remember the name of the signal book. So there you go. Well, I guess
fair enough.
I guess this is the first Monday after Tomstock.
Oh, there you go.
And you didn't go again.
I'm not sure if we didn't go again. Are you sure of that?
Well, I know somebody that's working on you. Was working on you to get you to go.
That's very true, and there is a strong possibility that may come together, but we're going to see how things come together. I got to put the family first on this one, and my daughter is headed to camp that weekend, and I want to make sure I'm available for facilitating that process.
You're not coming.
So
you're not coming.
We'll see what we can do. I heard there's a certain cookout, and I would love to be able to make an appearance at a certain cookout.
Yeah, the barbecue was just two days ago, and next weekend is your big weekend that you have at Crescent. So the
God
station.
willing, yes.
I know who I want to interview, and I need you to send me his the easiest way to get or maybe send me his cell number. First ask him, but Alex Lang. I want to get Alex Lang on the podcast.
Oh, he'll send you a calendar invite. You'll be all set.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll be like, "What's this?" I plan on. Let's just.
Lionel, you have to laugh at this. This is pretty funny, right? I mean, think about it.
What's the funny part?
It's great.
Irritating me is great. No, it's never
irritating you. The fact that the only reason that the best podcast is not talking to the biggest brand. It's because of a calendar invite.
No, they said we picked that date. We picked a date, and it was all set.
Send me the link.
And then and the guy kept saying that, and then finally he was able to understand that I didn't understand. I didn't know what he wanted. So, but then we agreed we were going to all meet together on July the 28th, and then 6 days later, I got a message saying he's not available that day. So that's where it's at. It's like. I'm not going to chase the guy all over Hell's Half Acre. You know, I don't mind. Because I said I'll make myself available at any time. And and so I'm going to be. I know what you're going to say. I know what a lot of people. And I can see Brad Williamson laughing already.
It's your podcast, my friend.
I plan
your way.
I plan on being, now that I'm starting to become an old guy, I plan on being a crusty old guy.
You already do that.
I know. I knew you were going to say that. But but you haven't seen nothing yet.
Well, except that's not you're not going to win any new fans that way, man. You've already got that set. Those fans are already here, Lionel. It's the rest of the hobby that's missing out.
Yeah, but now I got it. Now I got a cane, and I can wave the cane and go. When I was a young boy.
Yeah, I guess you used to wave the hockey stick, not as much the cane.
Yeah, I didn't carry that, but now I have a cane with me all the time, and I'm like, I'll tell you, when I was young, I'd show you. I'll tell you.
You sound like one of the firemen down the street.
Yeah,
except they usually do it sitting on the bumper of the fire truck.
Yeah, exactly.
We just had that at the 4th of July parade, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Usual.
I'd like to do that with you someday.
Oh, you'd love it.
I'd love it.
Yep.
But unfortunately, we're rapidly closing in on, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything other than sit here at the desk and make podcasts.
Well, fair enough.
Which is a total drag when you start to think about it.
Yeah, that part, it's not easy to hear that. And I know it's even harder to say it and feel it. Now, pain is like that. Pain, this is, I don't know. It's one of the unfortunate things about humanity is that we don't realize how bad pain is unless we've already had pain. And there's horrible relationship pain, and there's the pain of loss, there's which are real, but physically debilitating pain when you're walking or in your arms, like when you've got a spinal problem, that kind of pain, it changes the color of the light when you open your eyes in the morning. It changes the smell of coffee. It changes the sensation you get when you turn the page of RMC or Model Railroader. It changes the way music sounds. And one of the biggest frustrations in my past that I have with myself is that I did not have enough compassion for my sister when she was in agony.
Well, because you wouldn't.
I thought she was, but that's my point. And it's not this is not a sob story. It's not a sympathy story at all. It's an awareness story. And you are going through what is real, honest to God pain.
Yeah, and the problem is you can't expect people to know because they're not doing it.
No, but you also don't know how differently you sound when you're in it.
Oh, I sound different?
Yeah, you sound down.
Oh, I said.
Yeah.
Well,
you sound like a grumpy old man.
I didn't think I was doing too bad on this podcast.
I think you're doing okay, but there's a brightness in your voice that changes a little bit when you're hurting. It's not all the time, but it happens. You're human like the rest of us. It's a hard place to be. And look, we all love the banter. We all love when you're the way you bust our chops at Springfield or at a Tomstock or at wherever we come into contact with each other. That's part of the experience. Yeah,
that's the thing that's bothering me the most. Like Brad Williamson the other day was asking me if I was going to go to the National in Chattanooga, and I said, "Sure, if I can walk."
Yeah, right.
I'm not making any plans about anything because now I'm kind of stuck at. Oh, I don't know if I can. I can walk there, and it's like it'll be what it is. It's like I'm very, very fortunate because it really is not bothering me that much psychologically because I already kind of got the brass ring. So it's kind of like, oh well.
Well, right. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's also an exercise, I think, in how you want to see this, how you want the energy from what you do to continue. Because, there's people out there for a calendar invite. There's people out there to send you some kits. You don't have to, I'm sure Lauren would be happy to bring some stuff over so that you could sit at your bench and work on it while you get better, or while they play with different ideas on how you might be in less pain or what have you. So those options are out there. And it's like my little thing of let experts be experts. Like right now, there's a lot of people that are willing to help. And you don't have to go any of this stuff alone unless you'd like to. And if you'd like to, that's obviously your right. That's how I see it. But I've always been, I don't know. I ponder it often.
You know what the worst part? You know what the worst part about walking with a cane is, and you need the cane to be able to walk, is that you'll get 20 feet from a door, and somebody will want to hold it open for you, and it's like. It's going to take me twice as long to get to the door as it would you. You just keep going, because
that's so funny you bring this up. I was just talking with my kids about this today, actually. So we had a wonderful neighbor. I think I mentioned him at some point in the past. This guy named Hans Grunler. Wild story. This guy built a house across sort of. My dad ended up with an old farmhouse, which is where I was raised in Long Valley, New Jersey. And 100 yards down the road was, it was a huge cornfield, but 100 yards, this guy bought an acre of property, and he's a mason. So he built himself a beautiful brick house in like 1974, 75, 76. It took him 4 or 5 years coming up, on weekends from where he was working. But this, we got to know him pretty well. He and his wife didn't have any kids. He had been in the German Navy, where he enlisted so that he wouldn't be swept up by the Hitler Youth in World War II. They sank the ship. He got captured, prisoner of war in Britain, dumped back on the shore of France on, after Victory in Europe Day, and then was, given a couple dollars and a sack of potatoes and said, have a good life. And they had to walk back to Germany. So the stories are just incredible. But as he got older and older, and he ended up he had was it sciatica? It was a nerve issue with his vertebrae in one of his legs, and he got that really intense pain where he couldn't walk for a couple of days. So he ended up having to have a cane. And my kids remembered what they just said it today. Like, Hans, this is a guy that's seen it all. I mean, ship sunk in North Atlantic, hiking across Europe with Russian soldiers shooting at him because it was occupied East Germany where he had to get back to, and getting beat up by Russian soldiers. The kind of stuff that just blows your mind when you hear about it. Well, here comes Hans. People would open the door and he would say, David, the way we get through it is we have to laugh. And he'd said, here I come like a herd of turtles, in this heavy German accent. Here I come like a herd of turtles. And obviously that was something he did that was funny to him, and we all laughed along with it. But I think, people are just trying to help. They're doing what they think they can. And so you could say, I'm coming, I'm full steam ahead. I'll be right there. And as you get closer and closer, I'm coming full steam. You gotta, there's two ways to approach these situations.
But that's the thing, what we were just talking about. That's you're doing now. I'm mentally trying to go faster to make that person happy. Whereas in the reality, the one with the cane is the one struggling. So it's like, if I say, just keep going or don't worry about it or whatever, it's like, I'm having enough trouble. I can't be worrying about making everybody else feel good.
Well, they're doing it for the good of humanity.
Oh, sure, I understand that. But then absolutely, I would. And now I feel bad that I have done it.
Right.
Because
I'll do it again. We can still learn.
I think you're missing the point.
Maybe. It wouldn't be the first time, and it won't be the last.
Yeah. What do you know about?
No, dude, it's hard. Look, come on. I mean, you've worked too hard and done too much to be dealing with this like this. It's frustrating as hell that in 2024, there's no way to at least make it so that it's not agonizing.
It's just, it's the way the ball bounces. It's the luck of the draw. I've seen lots of people way worse off than me.
Agreed.
And, it's just the way it is. It's just, and I survived 10 years to get to this point, and that's the way it is. It's not that big of a deal to me. It's annoying, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Hold
the door open. It's fine.
But that's when I'm driving back from Florida by myself, I'm trying to make myself feel good, saying, well, I can still do this. But you pull in for gas. It takes you 3 times as long to get out of the car, 3 times as long to get the gas going in the car. And then you're hobbling towards the gas station and you're feeling like absolute crap, but you're just going to go get yourself a Diet Pepsi. And there's some guy holding the door and he's 25 feet away from you. And you're thinking, I can't go any faster. Please just go in the place and leave me alone.
I understand. That I understand. Yeah, I can see that. The last thing you want to do is have to just, right. You have one goal at the gas station. It's not to interact with somebody holding the door.
There you go.
That I can understand.
What do you know about T-Track? I'm on the Model Railroader magazine. They got somebody working hard on their Facebook page. I'll give them credit for that. Holy mackerel! There's a ton of posts on their Facebook page. They're going like crazy. Somebody's working hard on it.
Yep. I think this is some of the early signs. I mean, it's good to see. Maybe they finally have somebody full time on that, because I know that was something that they were doing sort of piecemeal at whoever was available. Yeah. And it's social media is not, it's not a part-time gig anymore if you're doing it professionally.
That's for sure, eh? That's what we talked about. I said you got to post more often on your Facebook page last time we talked.
Yep. And I've been holding myself to that, even through some vacations and things, set something up ahead of time and make sure it posts, even if it's something that's relatively simple and it's not a grand slam, it's still content.
Yeah.
It's still something that keeps the page fresh, and it gives people who are following you something new to look at.
You and Chris Wayman have something in common. I've given both of you the same speech. He was like, once in a while he'd post 30 pictures, and I'm like, no, post 15 times, post 2 pictures.
Right. Oh, I learned that the hard way years ago with the OC Facebook page when I first started it, and that makes a big difference because very few people. I mean, me and Rich Wisniewski and a few others go through 30 pictures. But most people don't.
No.
Most people look at 3 or 4, and that's it. So give them 2 or 3 and move on.
Yeah, like people just scroll. They don't really read. A lot of times they don't read the posts or anything. So you were at Tony Koester's not that long ago.
Correct. And in fact, I was also at Tony Koester's today.
Oh, really? On the 29th?
Today, on the 29th.
On Monday, the 29th?
I should say on the... in the time travel machine, right? Don't we have a little time travel machine here?
No, today is the 29th, and yesterday was Sunday, July 28th.
Oh, that's right. You said that's right because it was going to be just after
right
after Tom's talk.
And then
so this was before Tom's talk, but I reached out to Tony about a couple different things and mentioned, I'd love someday for the kids to come up and be able to see your railroad.
Oh, really? That was cool.
It worked out that on July 8th. Back in early July, the timing worked out good. And so up I went with the boys, and the boys got to officially meet and spend time with Tony and get a tour of the railroad. And it was a pleasure. It was awesome.
And do you think why is there no pictures of that?
There will be.
There's not one single picture. Yesterday, 6:57. There's a variety. It's a Rio Grande unit now, Union Pacific. And yet you took your sons to oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, I got to process the pictures. I haven't had time. I got home and got on the podcast. I literally walked in the door, turned the computer on, put the boys to bed, and now I'm talking to you.
Okay, so we are actually recording this on a Monday.
It's a Monday. And
you have the day off.
No, I got home from work, packed the boys up. Kristen and Susie are off to Susie's birthday party sleepover at a hotel east of here with a couple of her closest girlfriends. And so I have the boys for the night. And I figured, hey, and so a couple of days ago, I emailed Tony. He got back to me today, and here we are.
Oh, okay. How long does it take you to drive to Tony's?
About an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it might be 45 miles up through there's no good road to get there. You kind of have to pick your way up over the hills and stuff. But it's a beautiful drive, keeps you off the interstate, which I always enjoy. And the boys enjoyed it. We stopped at Hackettstown to see a train or two, only to find out that we just missed it. It's NJ Transit, and I still can't catch the train on time. But then we went up to Tony's. I didn't want to be late, so we didn't wait for the next one. And had a wonderful tour. Saw a couple of his upcoming projects and things, which is always exciting. And he's such a gracious host. He's telling us stories of growing up in Cayuga, Indiana, and the time that he got chased off the Wabash River Bridge by the railroad guys that were working there. And my boys really were interested to hear about his childhood. So I was really proud of them. We had a great hour and a half time with Tony without running a single train.
You didn't run it? No trains ran?
Nope. Tony turned the railroad on, and because the boys wanted to see the lights and stuff. But they were so excited to see the whole railroad that we just walked from town to town. And then we would go back here, and then Pete wanted to see, tell me about this, what this panel does. And so they did that. And then Teddy said, well, what's that place back there? Oh, that's Charleston Yard. Well, let's go back there. Okay. And then back they went. Tony crawled right under there and went up with them, right up there with them. It was cool. It was really a generous thing for Tony to do, I think, was to show the boys around. And at the end, Pete, of course, says, Mr. Koester, it would be a real pleasure if we could come to an operating session sometime. And I said, whoa, I wouldn't have balls that big. I don't think I would have asked that. And Tony said, well, we can get you guys here. You behave very well, and I really appreciate your interest. And I said, whoa. So when there's space at some point, hopefully later this year, we'll get the boys to a session there.
And so you live right on Interstate 78, so there's no, like, you wouldn't go along 78 to the Delaware Water Gap and up through that way?
You can do that. Yeah, I'm only 3 or 4 minutes from Route 78. And basically, I could take two sides of a triangle and go 78 or 22 all the way out towards Phillipsburg and go all the way back up 97 or 94, I should say, State Route 94 from there. I could also go 31 north from 78 to 46 west, which is the old 80, the US 46, which takes you up to 94. And that's a beautiful drive. Highway 94 is awesome. It's one of my favorite drives in New Jersey, actually. But then that's about 15 minutes longer just because of the fact that it's so far out of the way. So I usually just pick my way up through Califon and then head over towards Long Valley and go through my hometown, end up on 206 in Andover, and go up from that way.
You don't go anywhere near Scrappy Corner?
Sometimes I go right through Scrappy Corners. It's so funny. It's the first time in my life I saw that name on Google Maps was today.
Really?
What the hell is Scrappy Corner? I've never even heard of Scrappy Corner. I know just where it is. Like, in fact, one of my classmates from high school, her parents have a horse training center there where they do equestrian. There's a certain kind of equestrian riding that they do there. Dressage, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But in any case, her parents were, her dad's a veterinarian. Mom, I think, is some sort of equine, professional equine trainer or something like that. In any case, that's their farm is right there. And I'd never heard of it as Scrappy Corner. I still haven't, except for on Google Maps today.
Huh.
But I went right through it. I guess that'd be kind of a cool town name for your post office, right?
Yeah, it would
Scrappy
be.
Corner, New Jersey.
Scrappy Corner, yeah. Or Strang, Nebraska.
I love it. There we go.
I
don't think there's an Abelese anywhere.
I don't think. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. There's like 2 or 3 Strangs in the United States. There's one in Oklahoma, one in Nebraska. Was there a guy that?
It's a German name, is it?
I think it. Well, it's all I know of it is Scottish.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be too. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense.
That's all I know of it. What was I going to ask you? I was going to say something. I can't remember. Oh, yeah. Getting back to, that was one thing I wanted to say. We were talking about people to interview. People are always excited. They say, man, can you imagine if you got the chance to interview Rod Stewart? And I always come up with the same answer. I always say, yeah, but I'm just as interested in, as far as model railroading goes, I'm interested in interviewing just about anybody, whether it's Rod Stewart or Joe Blow. You know, like, I would think I always kind of disappoints me. People go, oh, that'd be cool because it's Rod Stewart. And I'm thinking, yeah, but this is a model railroad podcast. So he's a model railroad guy.
Yep. I think it'd be cool.
Oh, sure.
But I think that of all the things,
there's so many cool people to interview.
Right. And there's so many things already known out there about Rod Stewart. There's so many interviews, even about the railroad stuff. There's a bunch of people that have interviewed about railroad stuff. I still think it's awesome. I'm excited to see, what comes out of this talk that Eric White had with him. From what I understand, it was a fun trip. It was a crazy trip.
Oh yeah, what was that all about? You briefly said something to me about that.
Yeah, he put it on. It was on his Facebook page that he was, Model Railroader had Eric White, editor, who had been set up to go over and interview Sir Rod Stewart at his railroad. And from what I understand, he spent some time with him. They did some local things too. So I'm very excited to see, what happened. I think it's interesting and it's fun, but I also love listening to Chris Wayman talk, right? I mean, I also love, there's so many fascinating people to talk to in this hobby. The whole Australian contingent I've learned so much that are interviewed, and you can, it's just a fascinating perspective. Operations is loaded with that too. That's a growing part. And a guy named Indre, I'm gonna have to look it up. Another guy who's on Facebook is an unbelievable Norwegian. I believe is Norwegian modeler, or is he Finnish? I think it's Norway. Let me see if I can find that. But wherever you go, this is just growing and growing and growing. It's just fantastic.
When you were at Tony Koester's layout, the nickel plate, did you notice if they had any Rapido trains?
You're fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
I did. And the answer was yes. He's got one of the beautiful nickel plate Alco PAs on train number 10, which is awesome. It's a beautiful locomotive. He's got some cars. I don't know. I know he's got some other stuff, but I'm not sure that it's on the layout yet. Because there haven't been a lot of nickel plate diesels. There's been a couple. I think was there RS11s? I think there's RS11s.
Yeah, I think there was. Yeah.
Oh, it's Indre, INDRE. STINDRE Indre Stambane. And the guy speaks not a lick of English.
Right.
But it is some of the most incredible modeling I've ever seen.
Like North American or
no, it's very much Norwegian.
Now, how did you stumble onto it?
This was a guy I met one of his good friends who runs a hobby shop in Norway when I was operating down in the DC area years ago, like 2016, 2017. And this guy was there on a separate invite for model railroading. I guess he had been reaching out to Matt Thompson about car floats or something like that, again through the internet. He found the Oregon Coast Railroad website and got in touch with Matt. So Matt invited him to the same group of operation sessions. And so I ended up drinking beer with Torre, Tore is his name. I'm gonna see if I can find his page too. But he models sort of a fictional Rio Grande Southern. So instead of and his is beautiful, and of course he runs a hobby shop, so he's got access to all sorts of stuff. But his page is called the Red Mountain Railway. That's Tori's page
on Facebook.
Correct. Tori speaks very good English. He's a fun person to talk to. Indre doesn't speak a lick of English, but Tori sent me his Facebook thing, and I fell in love with it. Everything I've done on the OC with scenery, this guy has done perfectly on his railroad.
Yeah,
like super elevated curves and the weeds in the ditches and transition in pavements, and just he's got such an art for texture. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so here it is. I found the Red Mountain Railway. Yep.
And he'll mention Indre Stambane. He definitely mentions that a couple times.
Okay.
On a fairly regular basis, but his is beautiful too. He's a super nice guy.
Huh. And and he owns a hobby store in Norway.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be now see, that would be a great interview.
Sure.
That would be.
There's no end to this, Lionel. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Like, what a great interview that would be. And there's pictures here of a store he's building that he's trying to replicate that from somewhere out there in the Rockies. The B Granada General Merchandise Store. Somewhere out in the Rockies, somewhere out there where the Rio Grande ran. Look at that. Wowee.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, and he's got a brass locomotive, West Side Model K28. It's fascinating. This hobby is literally, we have no...
Isn't it? Isn't it exciting? It is so exciting. I mean, we've done 20 of these 20 of these fireside chats. And there's entire categories of stuff that we haven't talked about yet. I mean, we've touched on lots of stuff, but we could go back to anything we have talked about it and revisit it, and it'll be different because our perspectives are different than when we started this. I don't know. I see no other conclusion than the fact that the best is the yet to come.
Oh,
For this
absolutely.
whole thing, right?
Because we're so connected. Now while I'm talking to you, I'm looking at these fantastic photos of this Red Mountain Railway that's as every part as any layout you could find anywhere in North America, and it's in Norway.
Yeah.
And then in the back of my head, I'm rolling around. You're saying the guy speaks good English, and I'm thinking, well, this would be really interesting. Somebody really interesting to talk to.
It would be great. And I just sent you. I copied the link and sent you the link to Indre's Facebook page as well, so you can take a look at some of the pictures. It's all you'd have to translate it, which you can do, and it's cantankerous, but it's the intent is there. But the pictures speak for themselves. I mean, the guy is a master. His modeling is better than anything I've seen in person in my life.
Wow.
Which is
and there's some fantastic stuff. If you ever got to our buddy Scott's Scooter's place, Scott Lister, if you ever
I'll get there.
Yeah, I know. If you ever get there, you'll be speechless because it's fantastic model. It's fantastic modeling. It's just the best. To me, it's the best I've ever seen.
Awesome.
And it's just it all flows. Although Seth Gartner, who's just down the road in Charlotte, he has a beautiful layout and his modeling is excellent. And I mean, and it just goes on. That's one of the things I think that's really changed about the hobby in the last 25 years is that the quality of the layouts has increased because the materials that are available to us are that much better.
Right. So you're starting off ahead of the curve. Static grass and the scenery tufts, the grassy tufts that are available now, right off the bat, that plus super trees, and you've got very quickly something that's better than anything that could possibly have been created in 1995. Period.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that there is a company called Super Trees.
Yeah, right.
And they can make a living making trees. I'm sure they make other things as well, but they can make a living making trees and selling them in HO scale, and it's just like, and it's just it's endless, and just like there's another fellow I want to interview. His Facebook page is called Panzermeister36, and he is a guy that does war models, military models. But he also has a model railroad. But his techniques and his stuff is just fantastic. Like it seems like every time you turn a corner, you're like, that's like the downside of the podcast. It's like, oh, what about this guy? Oh, what about that guy? Like I contacted a guy. I've been working on contacting this guy. Norm, his YouTube channel is Norm's Trains, and finally I contacted him once last year, and he knew nothing of the podcast, so his question was kind of like, well, what's it about, blah, blah, blah. And I never got around to getting back to him, and then I contacted him again, and we finally got it all worked out, and we're going to do an interview. And, he has this 3-rail O-gauge layout that is comparable to George Celios's Franklin and South Manchester.
Holy moly.
And you're just kind of like, you're looking at this like, and it's just, you're stunned. And then I'm talking to right now, I'm involved in talking to another guy. He had sent in an email years ago, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago. And he had mentioned that he was a locomotive engineer for the Union Steel Company in Pittsburgh. And I know you had talked about the Union Railroad, but he's an engineer for actually the steel company, was an engineer for the steel company. And I thought, man, we should get him on the podcast. And then now it turns out he's a signal maintainer on the light rail system in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
So he'll be interesting to talk to.
That's great.
It's just this endless stream of people. And of course, when I'm talking to him, the first thing I'll say is, do you have any Rapido trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's HO, the fast track is Rapido.
All right. Just quick pause. So speaking of Rapido trains, I purchased a pair of the CP piggyback flat cars. Okay. The recent ones that Neil Schulfeld did such a nice job presenting on his Facebook page. I picked up a couple of those because even though most of them had been rebuilt by my era, the rebuild was fairly small. They got some container pedestals and that was about it. So they still have the double trailer pedestals that come with the kit, and it comes in the little poly bag, the plastic bag with the kit. You can put in whichever, either collapsed hitches or raised hitches as you see fit. By the 90s, most of the smaller trailers, the tiny trailers, were gone, and very few of those ever came down to the United States anyway. So for most of the time you see those cars in the United States, it had a trailer hitch at one end, and the other one was down. So I bought a pair of the flat cars, detailed them and weathered them to look like 1994. And even just pulling those cars out of the box, if you model intermodal anytime after about 1980, but especially in the 90s, these cars, because CP built them long, they built them like they're like 60 feet long, so they could fit a 48-foot trailer. They could even fit a 53-foot trailer, and there are some of these still running around. But it is one of those iconic intermodal cars. You don't need a fleet of them if you're in the United States, but if you have 2 or 3, boy, does it add like one of those realistic surprises in the middle of a piggyback train. It's a great model. I can't say enough about it. So nicely done, Jason. It's beautiful.
Yeah, the stuff they're producing over there is fantastic. Really
I'm dying for that. All this Dash 7 heaven, my friend. That's where we're headed.
That's what you're looking forward to.
It's already here.
Well, yeah, that's okay. That one is. I see that on your page. Now, will you have to send that over to Garden Staters to get some lights added to it, or is it pretty much ready to go?
No, I've got a handful over at Garden State. For John's work is getting better and better and better as well, and I have a couple models over there, older stuff that I'm getting brought up to match the rest of the stuff that he's done and the modern releases. But these new Rapido releases, they even have step lights. They've got everything.
So you don't need to send them at all. Nope,
which is fine, because that means my other models that I've already got can be phased through with John over time as we go forward to make the fleet be consistent. And that's one of the things when you go out and watch trains. This is something I'm sure Chris Raymond can agree with. You go out and you watch a train go by, especially at dawn, dusk, or after dark, and it's a consistent experience. Every locomotive has running lights. Every locomotive has the control stand lit up. Every locomotive either has step lights or ground lights or marker lights. There's lights on every locomotive besides the headlight, even when it's third, fourth, fifth in a consist. So to get that experience, because we do a lot of operations, so the nighttime stuff needs even trailing locomotives to have a couple lights on, a couple auxiliary lights, and that's where John excels. He the top shelf work.
He does fantastic work. He absolutely does fantastic work. We interviewed him. That's coming up in a week or two.
That's exciting. Good.
With him and Scott Lupia, and they had
Scott Lupia. Oh my God, Scott Lupia is. There's a guy that's doing cutting edge etched brass work.
Yeah,
he's a nitpicker. He is a details guy, and so when he says it's got 672 rivets, it's got 672.
Yeah,
rivets.
I know.
I did my FL9. My Rapido Trains FL9, the rebuilt ones for Amtrak.
Did you say Rapido Trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
I said Rapido Trains, my FL9. Well, Scott does a beautiful etched brass set to detail your FL9 to modern standards. And so you can get the half-open triangular cab window. You can get the auxiliary panels that Amtrak cut into their car body. Like, you can get the right MU cables. Get the right steps for the back of the locomotive. I ended up doing a couple Patreon posts about this over on my Patreon page, the Onondaga Cutoff Patreon page.
Yes.
And
great videos. Great videos, by the way.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate the encouragement and the assistance and the guidance on how we continue forward with that. But so you can get Scott Lupia puts this set together that basically enables you to create a modern FL9, modern, being mid-90s. And it's then distinctive from the off-the-shelf model. So instead of having to kit bash or scratch build an FL9, paint and decal an FL9, and then weather an FL9. Now you can buy it. Then you can change a few details, weather it, and put it in service. And the strobes work. The backup light works. The ground lights work. The number boards work. The class lights work. It's got the full array of sound. And those are all things that we can focus on now because somebody makes the model. And that's revolutionary for those of us that like to weather or that go out and watch trains, that rail fan and want to replicate what we see. It's just, imagine if, Chris Adams or Rapido Bill,
Chris never has much to talk about.
I know. That's what he says. It's like him and Rich should get together. They'd have nothing to talk about.
I know, exactly. It's like, oh my God.
But if you could go back in time, Chris, and you could watch trains as they tie down the steam engine for the night and know what track goes where and know where they park the engine and where the coal truck is and the way it sounds and the way the steam comes out. Those are all articulations that you could add. They're auxiliary motions you could add to your experience. And that's what guys like Scott Lupia and Garden State Models, John McGuire, allow us to be able to do now is add a little bit of that stuff that we can enjoy as time goes on, which is really exciting.
We were talking about Chris Wayman a minute ago.
Yes.
So tomorrow, after this particular podcast, tomorrow's Patreon podcast is a fireside chat with Chris Wayman.
Cool.
And the one thing I wanted to talk about was I had discovered, because I want to talk to this fella, Drayton Blackgrover. We've had him on a couple of times, but his videos are fantastic. His YouTube channel is fantastic. And I'm thinking I could just ask him about each video. And that would take him 15 minutes to tell me the story about each video. And he's got like 100 of them, And then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. How many videos has Chris ever done for Green Frog? So I started counting them up. Take a guess how many videos Chris Wayman has done for Green Frog Productions.
A wild guess is 150.
Well, 80.
80.
Which to me,
I knew I was overshooting at 150, but you said 100 before.
But 80.
Chris, good Lord, well done.
Yeah, and it's all quality.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful videos.
So the fireside chat is me starting to ask him about these videos, but of course we only get through the first 20 because Chris loves to tell stories about it, and I like to ask questions. So, but I mean, imagine a guy because this is I keep saying to Chris I'm a fanboy because I keep thinking to myself, I'm sure I've walked through Springfield or some other train show, and there's been the Green Frog Productions videos sitting out, and some of them are probably Chris's that I maybe would have picked up and looked at and go, maybe I should buy this one. And, and
sure,
because he's been doing it for decades. 80.
Incredible.
Yeah. He's only just, he's coming up to 40 years old, and he's already done 80 videos for Green Frog Productions. And Green Frog Productions was like for years, beside Pentrex, one of the places you got your train videos.
It's Green Frog, Railfan Depot, and Pentrex.
Yeah.
And Railfan Depot, I believe it's a lot of older videos, but they're a more recent comer onto the scene. Look, again, the sky's the limit for all this stuff. There is so much good stuff out there.
Oh my God. It's like freaking endless. It's absolutely, it's endless. And I'm not so sure it's great because I'm starting to get all overwhelmed by how much there is. Because every time.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I wanted to talk about tonight a little bit.
Okay.
Interesting topic for the next.
Well, let's start.
Next series. But I think one of the challenges, one of the dark sides to, like you just said, to how great things are today is that all of this stuff is suddenly here and available. One of the tough things about longer term projects in life is that someone like me that likes to be able to make progress towards an end struggles when you can't get your hands around a project. You can't get your hands around something. So, the model railroading's loaded with this. It used to be that if you had one of the 5 or 6 available Conrail books, you had all the books on Conrail. And you could read and get used to all the books on Conrail. And my civil engineering mind loves a project I can finish and move on to. Sometimes you have to revisit it. That's fine. I don't mind a second edition. I get it. But if you want to model a coal train, if your railroad can handle 20 car trains, you do 20 or 21 cars and you have your coal train. If your railroad can handle 35 cars, you have a 35 car train, so on and so forth. You can finish the coal train and have it, and then it's good in perpetuity. You can use it as long as you'd like, right? Today, there's not just 35 cars of a Conrail drop bottom coal train. There's 35 cars of the Conrail Bethgons. But then there's 35 cars of the 70-ton variety. There's also 35 cars of a run-through coal train from Norfolk and Western or Top Guns or what have you from NS. And the point is that there's 1,000 Conrail books. For every book, there's probably 5 Facebook pages or websites. So even me, and you get an email from the guys at Athearn or Rapido Trains or Scale Trains about, hey, what do you think about this color blue for Conrail blue? Or what do you think about, where's the artwork for this? And do you have any pictures of this kind of locomotive or whatever? And the answer is, well, I've got what I've got. Have you checked these other sources? And invariably, lately, they'll give me a source that I didn't even hear about before. There's freightcardata.com or something like that. I don't think that's actually it. But the point is, there's more and more available to the point where my engineering brain can no longer feel comfortable that I know that I've looked at all the resources for a particular topic.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And that weighs on me. I you know what I mean? Like I want to be well researched. I want to be an expert in certain parts of this hobby, and that's harder to do because it's exploding.
Well, exactly.
There's so much data.
I was actually talking to somebody about you last night, and I was saying how I was talking to you and saying, Dave, you're going to have to start to realize your position in the hobby, because whether you like it or not, you have the personality, you have the talent, you have the enthusiasm, you have all the ingredients that makes somebody that's going to be a leader in the hobby the ideal candidate. And, I think you're going to have to learn huge compromises going forward. You're going to have to learn to just be Dave Abeleys and not Dave Abeleys the encyclopedia.
But I like to learn these things, but there's just no time.
There's no time. There's no time, and there's too much.
Yes, it's still growing. It's still growing. So it's a fascinating thing. The whole thing is.
And I would say to you, it's not still growing. I would say it's never going to stop growing.
I think you're right. And so either you can learn how to deal with it, or you can go nuts trying to.
Yeah,
that's my dilemma these days.
Well, being overwhelmed, I think, is a huge part of what's wrong with society nowadays. I think everybody's overwhelmed. Everybody's overwhelmed. Like my wife and I were talking today that the insurance company in Florida that insures our house, they say, sorry, we're not doing it anymore in Florida. And
wow.
So then you got to go find another insurer. And I said to my wife, I said, well, really, the only two things we really care about are liability and fire. I said, everything else. I mean, we're not in, and we're 25, 30 miles inland. So even if a hurricane was a direct hit, it wouldn't be as strong as it would be on the shore. And there was no chance of a flood where we are. Our house happens to be sit up a little bit. We're actually like 27 feet above sea level.
Oh, there you go.
So, the main things I said to her, like one of the main things you're concerned about is fire. Because, you don't want to come back to the house and it's, the inside's completely gutted or something like that. So I said, so long as you're not looking for flood insurance and hurricane insurance and things like that, it's not that hard to find insurance, but it's an overwhelming task. It's something you got to go out and do because, in today's world now, they don't insure houses in Florida and everything. And if you're not careful, that's the way it is in model railroading. You can just become, like I say, you go into Otter Valley Railroad or you go into Midwest Model Railroad in Kansas City, technically Independence, Missouri. But, you go in there and you're just overwhelmed. Like, what kit do what car what pre-built car do I buy? What locomotive do I get? Like, these locomotives are like things you only dreamed about 25 years ago.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's where, you look, and it's across the different manufacturers, but you look at the way Rapido, time after time after time, is improving what's coming out. And have they made their mistakes? Sure. But they're mistakes that I can work with as a hobbyist and as someone who enjoys doing some of the stuff myself anyway. I don't mind changing a few things. I don't mind, doing some of the programming myself or what have you. But the quality and the features that come built in now, the prototype fidelity is just unbelievable. It opens a door to a whole nother side of the hobby. One of the reasons, in my opinion, besides the internet, that the military weathering guys and the model railroad guys are finally starting to get together is because the model railroad guys who have to make their stuff run, military stuff doesn't generally run.
Right.
But all of our stuff that we used to spend all this time getting to run well now runs really well out of the box.
Yeah.
And so you can get into the weathering. You can get into the Scott Lupia level details on an FL9 because there is an FL9 that runs like a Kato. It's fantastic.
And yet what's changed dramatically in the hobby since when I was building my layout is you can't buy undecorated locomotives anymore.
No.
You can't
much less common.
Yeah,
Yep.
having a freelance railroad has become a handful because you can't find undecorated locomotives anymore.
You got to strip everything, right?
And then back in my day, when I was at the prime of building my layout, undecorated locomotives were everywhere. Like, they were so easy to find. You'd been more surprised if you couldn't have found them.
Right. Every hobby shop had some.
Every hobby shop had had an undecorated version of whatever it was you wanted to buy, and they were always floating around. Now, there's not a one. And so I often think to myself, so have they killed part of the hobby in the freelance part of the hobby? Like that was a huge part of the hobby. Alan McClellan and Tony Koester and
Darnaby,
and all those guys, and Jack Ozanich and all those guys. That's what it was. That's what you did. You had your own prototype freelance railroad, and now that's gone. There's not that many people starting those anymore because it's just
it's true.
Too much work.
And a lot of those guys again love prototype operations. That whole list certainly does, and the prototype operations guy, they have a favorite prototype. So in a lot of cases, those guys were trying to emulate a prototype anyway, like Tony with, the Nickel Plate Road and the Norfolk and Western. And that's where his modeling ended up taking him anyway, was back to his roots now that you can get all this great nickel plate stuff. So I think there's an element of that, but I also think that, anybody that's doing freelance modeling expects to paint their own equipment. And learning to strip stuff, I mean, you can't just dump a locomotive in the solvent. You have to take the shell off and all those things. But you were doing that anyway to paint them.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an extra step or two, and you could still do it.
Well, and a lot of people have said to me, they paint right over the paint that's there.
Exactly. I to be honest, most of my repaints are done that way. I might remove the logos.
Right.
So you don't see it shining through the paint. You can do that with the,
right.
one of the micro scale solutions and as in paper towels and stuff.
There's a video for you to do for you.
Oh,
It's
100%. Yep.
It's HO.
But life is so good right now.
Is Rapido.
Rapido's coming out with 4 different numbers of C36-7. So unless you want to model a specific unit that has special meaning to you, which is totally fine, that's great. For me, the OC has never been about a specific unit. It's always been about the atmosphere, the excitement that I felt watching trains, and the freedom that I felt when I was watching trains, the community I could sense between the railroaders doing the work. That's the special thing about it for me. So for me, I'm content with most road numbers. But the world is your oyster if you're a modeler these days.
Well, and you and
really is.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially if you buy Rapido Trains.
your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
Both you and Chris Wayman have the same. I think that's going to be a more common thread is you're modeling a prototype, but it's a fictional line of a prototype. That's
his modeling is beautiful. I've enjoyed seen a bunch of that online, and he's got a gift for that too. And Scott Lister, boy, you hit the, I mean, I'm looking at the Sherwood Inn here, and my goodness, man, what a work apart. Scott and I are going to get together in the next couple weeks and have a video conference about all of downtown Fayetteville here on the OC.
Oh, can I be part of that?
Sure. And start to pick and choose how we're going to do things and, what's going to go where. I finally found the prototype for Fayetteville Station, and it was staring in front of me my whole life.
So
I can't believe I didn't think of it earlier, actually.
So is he going to have to scratch build that for you?
He has already offered to.
Yeah, he offers that to everybody, though.
Well, he's done the Sherwood for me. I'm pretty excited about this one. I think the Martisco Station on the old Auburn Main, the original New York Central Main line, actually had plans published for it in Model Railroader back in the 80s. I think we touched on this on a different podcast at one point, a couple months ago, maybe we talked about it briefly. Right. But I'm excited for the progress with that going forward. Scott's just been a real inspiration. His passion for structures is incredible. It's unparalleled.
You should see the RS ones he built me. They're spectacular.
Yeah. Oh, he did. I saw them in Springfield.
I feel like I should take them every year. Just so people can look at them. Because it's something else you got to haul.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
This year we're going to give out cheese balls and little cupcake. Like when you go to Costco. Do you have a Costco membership? I bet you don't.
I don't, but my wife does.
Oh, good. Thank God. I think I like Kristen better than I like you anyways.
Well, that's good. I think most people would say that. Yeah. I think that's a reason. I certainly do.
So you go to Costco?
Yeah, sometimes.
So you know how they give the little samples?
Yeah.
In the little paper cups?
Yeah, you can do sample cheese balls?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take chain. We're going to have a tray, and somebody's going to stand out there and handing out cheese balls. And I figured out a way. Scott and I were trying to figure out a way we were trying to get Utz to send a skid of cheese balls to Springfield for us to have there when we get there, right? But I think I'm going to order them from Costco. I'll order a skid of cheese balls from Costco.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd do that for you.
I'm sure they would. Well, there's another hour and 37 minutes we've blown through.
So much fun. So much fun.
But this is on the free channel.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but there's a lot of work involved in the free channel.
There is.
So anyways, you want to take a crack at giving out the email address?
I always mess this up, but
you do.
Our email address is modelerslife@gmail.com. And that's a modeler's life with one L, like Conrail, not two L's, like Lionel.
That's good. You nailed it.
All right. That's the first time it took me 20 freaking tries, but I got it.
How many Rapido's 38 GP38s did you buy?
Just one. Just
one?
Yep.
How come?
Because they weren't all that common on the Chicago line.
Okay.
They lived a lot in other divisions. B23-7s were the smaller -7s were the common unit for that on the Albany division. And the series that they chose it's a relatively narrow little series, and not all of them lasted until 1994.
Oh, okay.
So I've been promised by the guys that they're going to be doing a bunch more runs of these. And in the future, when they do stuff in the 8,000s, or I should say the upper end of the GP38, not 8,000s, those are 38-2s. But the 70, they're going to do 7,700s, and they're going to do 70, I think it's 7,900s. I believe what they're doing this time is 78s, and a bunch of those ended up going back to the leaser before my era.
Okay.
So
I think modeling Conrail was a stroke of brilliance.
Oh, thank you. That's luck. It's I was so close to doing the Rio Grande. I love the Rio Grande, but capturing the desert in a basement this size is almost impossible in HO scale.
So when you chose, so do you remember kind of the process of how you chose Conrail?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, it was Babby's. It was the heavy duty mainline multiple unit operation of that O gauge, that 3-rail O scale layout that Jack and I stumbled into.
Right. That
And
was your father's girlfriend for a stretch.
father's girlfriend. Yeah. And
then he
that
told,
the density of
hang on. And then he told her at her granddaughter's graduation that he was no longer her boyfriend.
Right. Or I think it was even worse than that. It was never her boyfriend or something. I don't know.
I wish I would have loved to have met your dad. That's my kind of guy. Just drop those bombs.
Well, it's funny. Brad Williamson and I were joking lately about how one of the reasons we both get along so well with you is that we grew up with somebody just like you. So you get used to the ribbing. You get used to having to give honest feedback when you don't like something. You tell you, right? I mean, you and I,
absolutely.
That's how we do things.
Absolutely.
Transparency, right? If you don't like it, say something.
Absolutely.
If you have a problem, say it.
I had a great conversation last night with Brad. Actually, he gave me a really, really good, solid piece of advice.
Awesome.
And it was because he could tell me without fear of what's the word? Repercussions.
Yeah.
He knew he could do it without fear of me getting mad or angry or jealous or mad or whatever. Yeah. And it was it was a really, really good piece of advice.
You got to clear the air sometimes. And my dad was very good at that. But that's the genesis of the OC was, of course, I grew up watching Conrail, and the most exciting trips when I was a child were to places where they ran lots of trains. I love the Lehigh line. I love watching trains in New Jersey, but we didn't have any real trunk line railroading in New Jersey by the time I was growing up. We had what was left over after it came east to Harrisburg or south of Selkirk. So going to Syracuse blew my mind. Oh my goodness, look at all these trains. Listen to this radio chatter. Going to Altoona and Crescent when I was 17 the first time. Listen to helper operations, all these neat locomotives and coal trains and high-speed intermodal takeovers. And oh my God, awesome. So I thought about the Rio Grande, and I love Soldier Summit. That's a great piece of the Rio Grande. But the vast majority of the traffic on that railroad is coal trains. There's a couple manifests, there's a couple intermodals, but it's mostly about pushing coal trains up Soldier Summit. And for a pusher operation, you need a longer mainline run, in my opinion, than I have on the OC. So, when I started to think about what were the most impressionable things in my youth, and when I started to think about, what did I enjoy most about what I was doing at the time when I was designing the OC, we were going to Babby's every week, every couple days. Jack and I would get some pizzas and drink some beers and run Lionel trains until 2:00 in the morning. It just,
and this was
heaven on earth.
This was after you started with NJ Transit, right?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. These are the days when, I could stay up till 2:00 in the morning and then get up and be at work at 6:30 or 7 and not worry about it. It just
right. I understand, but I mean, that's what people need to that's what kind of the magic of Dave Abeley's Uncle Dave is that, you were running trains on this O-scale layout. At the same time, you were working for New Jersey, the railroad, New Jersey Transit.
Yep. And dreaming up the Onondaga Cutoff was all, and Jack's operation plan was also while he was working in NJ Transit. So this is why the yard book I think is so exciting. You've got 4 or 5 sidebars in the yard book, and all of them are by people that either are professional railroaders or were professional railroaders.
Right.
So this yard book is not a book dedicated to model railroading. It's a railroad yard book and how you apply that to your model railroad. So I guarantee you in this book, there are prototype things that you haven't thought about. There is something for everybody in this book. I'm really excited how it came out.
And we're really excited too. I can't hardly wait, but we'll talk about it many more times before November 1st. That's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. That's very exciting. Very exciting.
All right. So we gave out the email address, and if you missed that, if you go to our website, amodelerslife.com, and scroll down the picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state. All you got to do is click on the picture and the email comes up for you. Dave, can I ask you a question?
You can ask me a question.
Have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
Yes.
Well, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, scroll across the navigation bar to Other, and then in the drop-down menu is the AML store. Boom, you go in there, and it's a wonderland of AML merchandise. Hats, hoodies, mugs, T-shirts. And in there you'll find a T-shirt with a hot dog on it.
And my friend Mark Steenwick, who lives in Kansas City and is a BNSF locomotive engineer, he told us about MidwestModelRailroad.com, and we actually went to the store there when I was in Kansas City, and it is a great store. I walked out having spent way too much money. It's the first time I'd ever seen a carousel rack there was some company I'd never heard of before that made GRS white metal castings for HO scale signals.
I know.
So,
it's bizarre, isn't it? It's bizarre. There is so much stuff. Hang on, I'm talking now. There is so much stuff. You know where I notice it the most is when I'm watching a NASCAR race. And there's 36 cars on the track. And I bet you 18 of them are sponsored by companies I've never heard of.
True.
And to do to sponsor a NASCAR race, even for one race, you're talking 6 figures chunk of money.
No kidding. Wow.
And these cars are sponsored by companies I've never heard of. And you'll type it, while you're sitting there watching it, you'll put it into your phone, and it's like, oh, geez, look at that. I never knew that. Blah blah blah. And that's what I think is one of the things that is so different from the 80s and 90s with model railroading to now. It's like back then you couldn't have a model railroad news because it was Athearn and Roundhouse and what they were producing, and they only brought out new models once every 3 months.
Right. I love what Tony Cook has done with Model Railroad News. It's a great magazine.
Absolutely.
And
it's a fabulous magazine.
I've had a lot of fun writing some reviews for him. But even Model Railroad News, it's the quality of RMC. It's heavy. It's beautiful pictures. It's solid writing from people that are experts in their field. It's a great magazine.
Well, and I think that would be what I would, if I had the opportunity, if the guy was asking me my opinion, which he never would. But if I was buying Model Railroader and Kalmbach, I'd say, buddy, the first thing you got to do is turn this ship around and start producing the magazine the same way RMC does. Otherwise, don't even bother starting.
Yeah, RMC has set a very high bar for a monthly publication.
And if they don't, it's just going to be downhill from there.
The quality has to be there before anything else is going to happen. I think that's important.
Yeah, and if they can't come to grips with that, they're going to be in deep trouble.
You got to pick up a couple copies of his other magazines.
Oh no, I know. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying, if I had, the first thing I would ask them is, so how much did this cost? He's probably just as well that I don't interview him.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we did the email address, we did the T-shirt, we did. So if you like this podcast and you'd like to have twice as much AML podcasting, Modeler's Life podcasting a week, if you go to our Patreon channel for just a few cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting every week. You can have 2 podcasts. One on Monday is free, and Tuesday is our Patreon channel. It's a little more down home. It's a little more uncensored. It's more earthy. If you're listening to viewer mail, you never know what you're going to get. If you're listening to one of the Fireside chats, they're always interesting. It's a great channel. And then if you want to move to the T-shirt level, then you get to enter one of the greatest. It's a contest actually that's sweeping the globe, and it's called "Hey Dude, Where's My Shirt?" So every year, when you're part of the $10 level, the T-shirt level, every year you get a Modeler's Life T-shirt that's only available to the Patreon members. But the problem is the person that's in charge of sending out the shirts, it's a little bit hit and miss. So then that's how we ended up with this new game show that's sweeping the nation. Hey, dude, where's my shirt?
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And people get you always get your shirt. As a matter of fact, our friend Neil Erickson in Hawaii, who has the official, I forget what it's called. So anyways, he got the official in Hawaii of the AML. Neil, you'll have to send me a message and remind me. But he said he commented that he ruined his maroon shirt because he got paint on it. And I sent him a message. Hey, you want another shirt? Just tell me. And he said, okay, how much? And I said, oh, you don't have to pay for it. Just how about you pay me for the postage? And I said, that'll be enough. And then what he doesn't realize is I'm going to charge him $172 for postage.
Hey, business is war, right?
Hey, do you have a Patreon channel?
I do have a Patreon channel. My Patreon channel for the Onondaga Cutoff is over at patreon.com/Onondaga Cutoff. And if you Google Onondaga Cutoff, Onondaga, all one word, Onondaga Cutoff will pop right up. And there's a Facebook page for you. There's a blog site for you. And there is a Patreon page where you get to see the real back story of the OC. Construction projects, detail projects, how I repair things that go wrong, some of the vision for the OC, where it started. And we really get into the nitty gritty of the how-to, some how-to stuff on detailing and weathering, and how I pull off some of the Facebook Lives that I've done over on the Onondaga Cutoff Facebook page. So your support is certainly appreciated. And like the AML, we have a t-shirt level, which allows you one t-shirt after a year of membership. And we're actually in the process of designing this year's t-shirt for people that are coming up on their anniversary. So stay tuned. There's some exciting t-shirts coming.
Now, do you mail out your t-shirts on time?
No.
Oh.
I try, but it's interesting because some people come and go from different levels. And so I've been trying to keep track of who's owed what. And I do have a list of everybody that's responded in the last couple months. And so those will go out here probably within about a month, I would say. But it's a moving target. And if anyone who's part of that t-shirt level feels that they need a t-shirt, that they didn't get theirs, just reach out. That's the beauty of the Patreon platform, is that you got immediate access to what I'm doing. And if you want to be in touch, the Patreon channel is the way to go.
Same thing here. Is if you think you're owed a t-shirt from, if I send you t-shirts and you think you haven't got a certain t-shirt, just send me a message and I'll make sure you get your t-shirt. But the beauty of it here over in the AML side is, you're in that game. Hey, dude, where's my shirt?
I love it.
Okay, I think that's it. I think we're done.
All right. Well, hey, for number 20, this was a fun conversation. It was positive. It had its requisite philosophy. Like, I think that's something that's been very consistent for us on all these fireside chats. But look, you can choose to be somebody who contributes a positive light. You can choose to reflect light. Those are the right choices. There are too many opportunities these days to be a downer, to be someone who's focused on negative stuff. And that's you lose every time you do that. That's a good way to have a miserable existence.
Absolutely. The thing I enjoy the most about these particular fireside chats is we don't talk beforehand. We just hit the record button, and whatever we talk about, we talk about. And
that's it. This is completely unrehearsed, for better or worse.
That's right.
We should have a t-shirt that says that.
Yeah, we should. Actually,
completely unrehearsed, for better or worse.
My wife had a great idea for a t-shirt that I'm going to get Steve, the t-shirt guy, to make me like a half a dozen or so. And it's going to be when I'm walking around, with my cane, and the t-shirt's just going to simply say, "I'm faking it."
Love it.
What a great t-shirt.
That's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
fans of the new Rapido Trains intermodal cars.
Now it's time for the New Jersey Transit Elevator Escalator Report. Take it away, Dave.
Good morning, everybody. Cranford eastbound's back in service. Plainfield westbound also back in service. Vendor had a good day out there yesterday. Hamilton number 3 is out. We think that one's going to be a brake adjustment, but we're going to check it in this morning. The vendor's on his way. At Westmont, we have the DCA out there today taking a look at the testing on the doors, making sure that the safety edges are back in tolerance after the outage yesterday. Newark Penn Station number 3 is out with a skirt panel reset, and Newark Penn Station number 17 is back in service after a reset this morning.
It's another Lincoln Homer.